Welcome to the Blakkavellie show. I'm your host, Blakkavellie, and I'm here with my co-host, JD DJ Jeezy.
Johnny.
We just talk
Johnny.
about the randomest stuff.
Just call me Johnny. Blakkavellie, goddamn.
And it is what it is. Like it or love it. Hey guys, welcome to the Blakkavellie show. I'm your host, Brian, and I am on a journey to find the answers to the question of who is God? Is Jesus God? And when did Jesus become God? So those are my questions. I've been on this journey for quite some time now, doing most of it on my own. I've spoken to a lot of friends and family members and pastors about it, and I've also inquired on some literature. So one of the books that I am reading is titled God Over Good, and it's written by Pastor Luke Northworthy, and it is a fantastic book. He does a great job of explaining his journey, and he was a pastor, and then he had these questions, and he became insecure in his ministry to the point that he had to step back and ask these same questions. I wish that I could say that he answers those questions. He might have answered them, like got his answers, but he doesn't necessarily give the answers to who is God, is Jesus God, and when did Jesus become God. So then the next book that my wife and I have started to read, which is really good if you're going to do a Bible study, especially if you're not a Christian and you want to learn more about Christianity or just about the Bible in general. So this book by Stephen M. Miller is a really good book. It's called The Complete Guide to the Bible, and it is, like I said, if you want to learn places, people, anything like that, if you have any question while you're reading through the Bible from Genesis to Revelations and you're just not getting it, because some versions of the Bible are very hard to understand, to grasp what they're saying. And so this book is really useful. It's really helpful for a study guide to help you go through the Bible. Stephen Miller also has he's rewriting the Bible, I guess, in a more non-Christian platform, to where if you're not a Christian and you have a hard time believing, or if you just question your faith or anything, you can get his book and his version of the Bible and just read through it. I have not read through it. I have watched a video that he put out, and it was hard to watch, because he did ask a lot of questions, and the questions that he was asking are questions that a non-believer would ask a Christian. But the questions that he was asking was from the Old Testament. He didn't ask any questions from the New Testament, or what Christianity is based on. He only asked questions from the Old Testament, questions from the 10 Commandments or the 613 Commandments. So if you want to start a Bible study and you don't know where to begin, you can either start with this, or you can start in your Bible and just use this as a study guide. It's really good. I've read it. I've started reading it. I haven't made it all the way through it. I mean, it has all 66 books of the Bible. It has nearly 300 photos and illustrations and maps. It has cross references, indexes, just pretty much anything that you need to get through the Bible. Like, it's it's really good. And also, if you want to read this to kids, if you want to help your kids get a really good Bible study going on, this will help with that also, because it's pretty self-explanatory. Doesn't use some of the language that the Bible uses, or the style that the Bible uses. Sorry. So it doesn't even really hold a lot of information per book, I guess. But like it goes through Genesis pretty quickly, up to Noah, up to Abraham, pretty quickly. Like you don't get a whole lot of Adam and Eve or anything like that. But I have gone through it, and I've made some notes. I've highlighted some stuff that I thought was pretty interesting, or something that like I wasn't too sure about in the beginning before I started, and I can't wait to get through this. So that's a really good book. The third book that my wife and I have started to read is The Forgotten Books of Eden. This one is kind of really hard to to get through, because it spends a lot of time with Adam and Eve. It's almost, I don't know, it's almost 3 chapters of just Adam and Eve. And that's as far as we've gotten with it, because it's so in depth and it goes so far into Adam and Eve, and like what their almost day-to-day process was. And if you're questioning who wrote the book of Adam and Eve, like how do we know this? Seth, Adam and Eve's son Seth, is the one who wrote down the lineage of Adam and Eve. He wrote down, Adam and Eve told him everything. This is what happened. This is what we went through. This is what I did. This is what she did. This is, all that. And so Seth wrote it all down. Which was great for Seth in whatever language, Like that's one question that comes up whenever you're thinking about the Bible, is who wrote it, who dissected what was written, who transcribed what was written. How do they know what was written? Because when there was Adam and Eve, there was no one else. There was no one else. And then when you got Adam and Eve's children, and Seth being one of the children, and he writes down their story, what language was that? And who along the way learned how to read that language and put it into a different language, such as Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, Greek, Roman, whatever it is. Who and how and when and where? Another question that came from reading this book was, how long did it take God to create the earth? Which is also in this book. How long did it take God to create the earth? This book estimates that it took. This book is the complete guide to the Bible. It estimates that it was not 7 days. It didn't take God 7 days. So the belief that the world was created in 7 days, 7 24-hour days, is false, according to that book. Same kind of according to this book. This book brings up the question of how long did it take? The Forgotten Books of Eden brings up the questions of how long did it take to create the world? And how long did it take to create Adam and Eve? From Adam to Eve, how long was that? Was it a day? Was it 3 days? Was it a year? So then you think about when David says, a day in your courts is 1,000 elsewhere. So like, I know that's a comparable, like a metaphor, or he's just saying like, I would rather spend 1 day in your course than spend 1,000 days somewhere else. I'd rather spend 1 day with you than to be somewhere else for 1,000 days. But in thinking about the creation of the world, how long did it take? Because we don't know time with God. We don't know, God knows all. He's everywhere. He's in the beginning. He's in the end. So how long? Yes, the Bible says day 1, he created. Day 2, he created. Day 3, he created. But is that a day? Is that a human day? Is that a God day? And if God created the earth in that time frame, how do we know? Because none of these books say God told Adam, it took me this long to create. It took me that long to create. It just says, in the beginning. So how do we know how long it actually took? That's one question. And I think that is where the question of faith comes into play. It's not about, like, I'm not giving up my faith. I'm not losing faith. I'm not denouncing my Christianity. I'm exploring. I want to know more. I want to know everything that I can possibly know for myself, and so that I know how to raise my children. Because I know how my parents raised me. We went to church just about every day, and at some point it began to feel like it was a tradition. We went to church as a tradition. It wasn't that we went to church because we were Christians. Because I was growing up, I didn't know any other religions or traditions. I knew my church, my family's church, and I knew a couple of other churches in town that were black churches, and I didn't know anything about the white churches. Nothing at all. I knew that they did some pretty fun stuff over there, stuff that we didn't do. They had basketball goals inside the church. We didn't have that. So it was like, what's different? Why is that one the Christian church and this one isn't, if we're Christians? Why is that one the Baptist church, but they're Christians? but it's not the Christian church. So just a lot of questions, a lot of doubt, especially in a young adolescent kid's mind. I was 14 whenever I stopped going to church. I was 14 whenever I started working. Got my first job when I was 14. I stopped going to church. I didn't see the sense in it because I saw the people that went to church. I saw them in church, how they were in church, and I saw them outside of church. And it was two completely different people. And so I was like, what are we doing here? I'm not really learning anything. I'm getting shouted out. Mostly. It's just a bunch of this is how you're supposed to live, but you ain't living that way. And if I was 12, my grandma passed away. And that took a really big hit on me because my grandma was my world. I loved my grandma. And when she passed away, I pretty much didn't care about anything at all. She passed away and my nephew was born, and I pretty much started, I was pretty much the babysitter. So then, I had no outside life. I had no friends. My cousins had moved from Oklahoma to Texas, so they were my only friend source. And I was always with my nephew, and he was just a baby, so I didn't leave the house really. I went to school, and I came home, went to church, and I came home, and that was pretty much the extent of my day to day. I didn't read the Bible really, only in church. It wasn't really forced on us or anything like that. As I got older, so I stopped going to church when I was 14. I started going back to church when I was 16, but I didn't go because I wanted to learn about God. I joined a Christian rock band, and the lead singer's dad was the pastor of the church. So we used the church as practice. We used the church equipment. And the pastor heard me play. He was like, yo, you need to come and play on Sunday morning. And I said, nah, I'm good. I don't do that. I don't play anymore for that purpose. I'm good. And he was like, no, just come and play. And if you like it, you can keep coming. If you don't, fine. So I went, I played, I enjoyed it. The music was very different. The atmosphere was very different. But I enjoyed it. And it was like I got a different feeling than what I did in my home church. And so I went back. But I only went to play. A couple of times I would stay and listen to the sermon, but most of the time I went, I played, I left, I got dressed, and I went to work. I did that from 16 to 24, 25, something like that. I think there was a time when I was 18, I moved away from town. I went to school in Dale City. And so I found a church in Midwest City. So I went to church there, I played there. But it was the same thing. I would go and I would play, and then I would leave. I wasn't there actually for church. I just wanted to play drums. That was it. I just want to play drums. You give me a song, I come up with the beat, and it is what it is. But throughout that time, I wasn't living for God. I was living for myself and trying to get what I wanted out of the people that was around me, which was I wanted to play drums. They gave me the opportunity to play drums. They accepted me, even though I looked different than them, even though I sounded different than them, even though my playing, my style of drumming was different than what they were used to. They accepted me, and I think that was the biggest hit to me was the feeling of acceptance. It wasn't so much about like I had to be there. I was wanted there. That was the difference. And that's what led me down the initial journey to discover more about God. And I did. I went to Bible studies. I started like actually staying at church instead of just playing the drums and leaving. Um, and I was actually questioned on that a couple of times. Like, why do you always leave right after worship? You bounce, and I was like, because I have to go to work. You know, like we finished playing at 10:30. I got to be at work at 11. So, or we finished playing at 11. I got to be at work at 12. So I got to go home. I got to change, and then I got to get to work. So I started this journey into Christianity, like a for real Christian, not just someone that was forced to go to church. I was accepted into a church for 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 me, someone who's different, someone who looks different, someone who talks different, acts different, has different societal beliefs, and I was accepted. And this family, like they I want to say I put them through hell because of things that I went through in my family that I dragged them into, but they were so helpful and so willing to be there, and I needed that. But I'm getting way off topic. I hope that really helps somebody. Whoever, I really hope that helps you. That knowing that you can go from being somewhere in a dark, very dark place, and that there's somebody out there that's willing to help you, even though you're different than them, even though you sound, look, think, or emotional, whatever, you're different than them, but they still want to help you. So I hope that you get something out of this message, and I hope that y'all look up these books: the Complete Guide to the Bible, The Forgotten Books of Eden, God Over Good, uh, Stephen M. Miller, and Luke Northworthy. Luke has a podcast that you can listen to, and Stephen has some YouTube videos. Again, he's rewriting the Bible, so you can look that up and check it out. Uh, Luke has some other books. I have not checked them out yet, but I've seen them at my local library. But this one really opened my eyes to a lot of different religions. You know, before I was 15, I had never heard of of Muhammad or the Nation of Islam or you know anything. I might have heard of it in passing, but I didn't know what it was. I've heard of it because of Muhammad Ali. I've heard of it because of Malcolm X, but I didn't know what those were, what it meant. When I was 15, I came across a group of guys in a Walmart that were trying to convert me into Islam. And I had no idea what they were talking about. And I was just like, yo, you need to get away from me. I don't know what you're doing. You know, y'all walking around with trench coats on. You might got a weapon underneath there. I don't like this. Don't like it at all. So I diverted them and got away from them and was like, leave me alone. as I got older and started looking more into different types of religions and everything, then I was like, that makes sense. Like, my favorite rapper growing up, DMX, was Muslim. I didn't know. I had no idea he grew up Muslim. He converted to Christianity because he saw something that gave him a hope that Muslim that Islam didn't. I, you have to go and watch, his story. Rest in peace, DMX. And I really enjoyed reading these books. I'm still not done with them, but I have enjoyed reading them so far. I've learned a lot of different religions, or not really religions, but ologies. The study of, like a deist. Never heard of a deist, or Deus Ex Machina. Never heard of that, and like, it's crazy because I'm 36 and I never heard of these things, and I bring it up to someone that's like 22, 23 years old, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that means this." And I'm like, "How do you know? What school did you go to?" Because they didn't teach that in my school. I went to school at American Broadcasting School. They didn't teach that there. Like, what did you do? And so I wish that I had actually, for some sake of it, I wish I had actually gone to college and got and learned a lot more than what I did. I did go to school after high school. I did get, some knowledge, but it was more or less like useful knowledge or useless knowledge. Whatever. But now I'm educating myself, and I encourage you to educate yourself, especially if you're going through a hard time of faith, or you're not a believer at all, whether it's in Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, whatever. If you don't believe in anything, if you're a complete 100% atheist, I encourage you to at least read a couple of these books, because Luke almost became atheist and he made his way back to God. And it's the God over good is the belief that just doing good isn't gonna get you to where you need to be, or to where you want to be. Being a good person is not the end of it. So, listen, I'm out of time. I'm Brian. This is the Blakkavellie show. I hope you enjoy it. Come back next week. Hopefully my boy will be with me. So, love, peace, chicken grease. Holla at your boy.